Welcome all. Coleman Report Live, May 12th, 2020 edition. Lance Sexton, Coleman Instructor Extraordinaire. Lance, welcome.
Good to be here, Bob. It's good to be here.
And Katie Watucky, our editor. Katie, good to see you as always. Hey, look at that. Katie has a green screen. I like it, Katie.
That's awesome.
Isn't that
Now
nice?
we just need Lance on here.
Yeah.
The challenge, guys, is I'm in Radio Shack, and I have flipped it around so you don't have the compact computer in the background anymore.
Well, that's too bad. Hey, we haven't covered this for a while, but please download the certificates to answer the question what you're doing for training. They are attached to your GoToWebinar dashboard. Just download those and keep those in your file. It's one of the first things your auditors, SBA, everyone wants to know what you're doing for training. And Lance, this certainly qualifies. Don't you agree?
Absolutely, Bob, and there is so much that we need to know and find out about implementation of PPP. So,
well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Unfortunately, Brent Trulino, director from New Tech, was going to be on today, but he had a last-minute event he had to cancel. And I think we're going to get him in. We'll cycle him in later on this week. But anyway, I'm going to talk about PPP, Lance. Specifically, I want to talk about in the weeds stuff on what's going on with the 1502 and why is this all important. So the first question we have for all of you is, are you able to comply with the 1502 reporting deadline to Coleman?
I would suspect that most people could, but I also suspect the complexity of the 1502 has stepped up quite a bit.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's not too bad. Lance, why is the 1502 reporting important?
Well, first of all, the 1502 reporting, I think, is going to be the source of information to pay the banks the fee that is owed to them. So it's pretty, it's like when you're doing a PDK, Bob, and there is the wire transfer page. That wire transfer page is the most important document because it's how SBA sends you the money. The 1502 reporting deadline got extended because the amnesty period for those who are returning money on PPP loans was extended. Now, there's a lot of discussion across the country about larger organizations that got PPP loans. Again, Bob, I've said this many times. They didn't break any rules. They just were not liked in the court of public opinion. The PPP program was intended to keep people employed, and they would have done that. But again, many companies have returned it, and some companies now are concerned about forgiveness, Bob, and the SBA and the Treasury have drugged their feet so long in giving us guidance on exactly how forgiveness is going to take place that I think some of your second-round applicants are hesitant for that reason.
Right. Let's go. These are the poll questions, and then we'll go into this topic more in depth. Number 2, are your customers hesitant to apply because due to the lack of forgiveness rules?
Well, I think banks across the country are seeing a different velocity in round 2 as opposed to round 1, and I think part of it's because people pick up their phone and they Google it and they look at PPP and they see all sorts of horror stories.
Wow, look at that.
So, I mean, it definitely, Bob, supports what I'm saying. Customers have read stories about organizations that are concerned about how forgiveness is going to work. And, there are banks, I've heard stories from banks throughout the country who have had customers who got large PPP loans, realize they're not completely certain about forgiveness, and they're considering the possibility of returning the funds.
All right, let's ask some weeds questions. So Lance, I know you were talking about one of your personal loans where they wanted to come and pay it off. Does the bank still get the packaging fee on that loan if it's been booked?
Well, Bob, and that was a friend of mine at another bank had a large customer who got a PPP loan, and they were telling me that they had some concern about forgiveness. They didn't feel like they could use it all. And then, of course, after the 6-month deferment period, a huge payment kicked in on the PPP loan. And they were considering the possibility of just returning and paying off the loan. And that's a tremendous question, Bob. I think if the PPP loan is dispersed and reported on the 1502 report, the bank does get the fee from SBA. That could be the reason for the extension on the 1502 reporting. They want to give the businesses that are returning the money the opportunity to return it, and that not be reported. And of course, SBA would not have to pay a fee on it. But my understanding is if you make a PPP loan, it gets dispersed, it's reported.
Yeah, this makes sense.
That your bank will get paid.
Very good. And that's an interesting number. What do you think of those results, Lance?
I'm not completely surprised. I think that we are seeing more and more, or we're hearing more and more stories of borrowers who got a large PPP loan are concerned about repayment, forgiveness. And the best way SBA and Treasury can fix this? Issue the guidance. Tell us how it's going to work. And you may see new velocity in the round 2 of PPP. You may have more and more customers who receive PPP loans who are not. Now, I'm not saying it's special cases where you're having people ask about returns, Bob, but you don't have to Google very hard to find stories of small businesses who have significant concern about forgiveness. And again, SBA and the Treasury can fix it by issuing that forgiveness guidance.
Do you think it's going to come out this week?
I have heard that it's going to be out this week. It really needs to, because if you think about it, round 1 PPP is now a month old.
Lance, you and I are assuming it's going to drop this week. We thought it was going to drop last Friday. Obviously, it hasn't yet. We have our webinar scheduled next Wednesday. So we are planning on it dropping this week, and then we're going to have our webinar on Wednesday. Hey, Joseph, did you do it? Oh, and the registration form is attached to the GoToWebinar thing.
Well, part of the reason, Bob, I think it's delayed is they are considering, one of the big issues with PPP is the 8-week period to use the money. Let's say you are a steakhouse owner in Los Angeles, California. Your restaurant's not open right now. You probably have. Do they do carry out in California?
Yes,
okay. But let's say you've got a 400-seat steakhouse in California. You've got a little bit of income coming through carry out, and you got a PPP loan for $200,000 in the first round. You're 4 weeks through it. You're not even open.
Lance, there was an article in our local paper that said a lady going to a restaurant, Japanese, some ethnic restaurant. She normally did $1,500 a day, takeout $90 a day.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, but the concern that we have is the period that they're supposed to use the funds starts when the loan disperses.
Right.
And I think that the Treasury, SBA, Congress, whomever's making this decision is thinking about how do we fix that time period. I am a proponent, Bob. I wish they would just say, okay, payments are deferred for 6 months. Let's give them 6 months to use the money and ask for forgiveness. I think in a 6-month period, we'll see more of the small business community back to a new normal, as opposed to right now. For instance, Arkansas is one of the first states opening up, Bob. Our restaurants are now open at 30% of capacity. Well, if you've got a PPP loan based on your full employee count in 2019, what are you going to do? Just have them come in and sit in the restaurant and pay them for sitting? I mean, the time period for utilization of the PPP funds absolutely needs to be addressed when they come out with this guidance. And
well, we are waiting for them. Hey, let's bring Katie into the discussion. Katie, I want to follow up on the OIG report. And they have 5 different things that they, in their flash report. Go ahead and tell us what is the OIG's concern, and is SBA meeting their concerns?
Right. So the OIG really found approximately 4 things that were not necessarily following what the CARES Act was suggesting that this program should be doing. And of course, they're very, you could kind of see where the SBA was coming from when they issued some of these guidance and some of the FAQs, because they do address some of the issues that the CARES Act did not have in the text. The problems that they came across was that in the CARES Act, there's language that suggests the PPP program should prioritize loans to small businesses in underserved markets and to small businesses owned by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. Of course, the SBA never issued any kind of specific guidance on that. And so what they're saying now in the OIG report is that possibly we need some kind of guidance on that or something to help that population, since that was not addressed in the first round of PPP and it's still not being addressed right now. Something else that they found was that there was no requirement for 75% of the PPP loan to go toward payroll in the initial act. And SBA created that. And of course, we were going to need some kind of guidance at some point about that. But the question the OIG is bringing up is that is 75% a fair number for them to have selected on their own without Congress making that decision? And of course, like we've been discussing all morning or all day, is that the SBA was supposed to provide us some guidelines on deferment and forgiveness, and they had a very specific amount of time to do that, and that time has now passed. And so they were supposed to be giving guidance to lenders on those things, and they need that to come out as soon as possible, because otherwise our borrowers are going to get confused, the lenders are confused, and we need to know what we're doing. And of course, they're also supposed to register the PPP loans, and that's all on SBA to be doing. They need to be doing that.
Great. We will go ahead,
Lance.
Lance.
Bob, probably the most important topic in there is the percentage. Even, the businesses that are not able to bring all their employees back could use the PPP money for rent and utilities and then payroll. But the 75% percentage for payroll puts them in a position where basically they've got to spend it on payroll checks. And I understand that it was intended to make sure people were working, to make sure people were employed. But given the 8-week time frame,
still put me down as a fan of this program versus what we did with GM and AIG back during the recession.
Oh yeah. Hey, this program, the fun part is it's easy to sit back and pick it apart, but Joe and I were talking about this before we started today. The problem is, as the program has evolved and been here, we can sit back and say, here's a problem. OIG can go look at it and say, here's a problem. But SBA had to get this on the streets quickly. If it didn't get on the streets quickly, it wouldn't have been as useful as it is. So now it's just a matter of, let's get the guidance
on this yesterday. Can you imagine, Lance, if they said, okay, we're going to roll this out June 1st? Well, that's not going to do anybody good. So it's sometimes it's speed to market, and for all of us who are entrepreneurs, and I know most small banks are entrepreneurial, and there's entrepreneurs. Sometimes you say, you know what, we got to get it out, and we'll fix the bugs as they come up, and let's just make a decision.
Well, Bob, you make a beautiful point, Bob. Timing was of the essence, and now guidance on forgiveness, it's not been issued. And the nice thing is SBA and the Treasury can fix this now.
Yeah.
They can fix those issues.
Very good. Let's see. Please feel free to take advantage of our webinar next week. And by the way, just as an editorial comment, I really want to thank you for all your support. Lance, we're over 500 people who view this show every day now.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And it's
Yeah, in
always
fact,
fun
go
to
to webinar, send us a nasty note saying you're capped at 500. You get to send us more money every month. So we send them more money. Anyway, I mean, that's amazing. We get over 500 of you. We love your questions. We appreciate your support. We want to offer a product that gives back to the community and gives people up-to-date information and obviously what we do, and then we tell you about what we're doing. Hey, Lance, you're going to cover for me tomorrow. The doctors have found out with my medical insurance, I'm just their new ATM, so they get to go and poke me. And I think they have kids who need. All right, let's see. Yeah, we got 5 minutes for questions, so let's go. Any update on Main Street loans beyond April 30th? I don't know about that.
well, I got a great
Go
I got
ahead.
a great question today from Susie, Bob. She was asking if you got a PPP loan, could you get a Main Street loan? I do not know the answer to that question. Not seeing any guidance that says you can. If anybody knows, please let us know, because I'd like to know the answer to the question.
Yes, very good. Ariana asked, does the borrower returning the money also have to return accrued interest?
I'm going to say this without having the additional guidance, but I'm going to say yes.
Brian, I never got an answer to the actual question yesterday. How do lenders get paid for originating PPP loans? Very good, Brian. We'll answer it now. Go ahead, Lance.
Once the loan is reported to SBA as being dispersed, about 30 days after that, the fees will come to the bank. That's what I've been told.
Brian pointed, I think it was Brian yesterday, said, but isn't the bank supposed to be paid within 5 days?
That originally was, see, the problem with getting paid within 5 days, SBA does not pay until a loan is dispersed.
Okay. But it's often,
so they have to have a report showing the loan being dispersed. And here's the other thing, Bob. Okay, let's just use as a fun example, the Los Angeles Lakers got a PPP loan. If they got paid and they returned the money, so whichever bank originated that would have, if it was 5 days, would have already gotten the fee. Yeah. And then the LO. So, I mean, how do you deal with that? So it's supposed to be once the loan is dispersed and the bank reports it, the bank will get paid.
Randy asked the question, don't you think there will be more than one PPP 1502 report, or is it all going to be the same report?
I don't know the answer to that, Bob.
I think it's one report, Brandon, but I'm you know what? I shouldn't guess. Jeff asked, how are we to handle the return of loans that were funded and dispersed? What about accrued interest? Do we just report them on the 1502 as being repaid and interest outstanding?
My take is they owe the interest. But there is the amnesty period. But again, there's not real clear guidance. I had a customer ask me, I had another bank call me. They had a customer ask, we've gotten the loan. We've had it for 3 weeks. We're not sure we're really going to use it. We don't want to have to pay the big rate, so we want to pay it back. And I said, it's like any other loan on your bank's books. There will be a small amount of accrued interest, and they can pay it back.
Rebecca asked an interesting question. I think it's a great question. Can't you pay them, employees, to sit at home and manage shifts at low hours, i.e. virtual employees? Do they count?
I would think absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Lance.
In the PPP, Bob, they did not differentiate. And virtual employees are, I haven't worked in my office for an extended period of time. Virtual employees are the norm now.
Yeah, we need to, we're going to dust off our commercial real estate webinar. We're going to take a good hard look at what's happening with the CRE market. I haven't read anything about that, but that's, you may want to take a look at some of your CRE loans. Anyway, very good. Michael, are we clear? 10 or 15 more questions. Well, give me 2 and we'll hold the others over till next week. Lance, when do you get to go back to your office?
Not sure yet. Our institution's taking a very careful approach to going back to the office, so I do not know at this point.
Let's do this, Lance. I'm going to send you the rest of these questions for tomorrow's show. Why don't you go ahead and answer those 8? Make that a part of the content. Okay.
Okay. Good.
Let's do that. So we'll get to all these questions. We love the questions. Unfortunately, I'm sort of a stickler on start on time and end on time, and I don't like to go more than 25 minutes beyond the half hour. These are the 3. Okay. I have Susie says you can do both Main Street and PPP.
Hey, thank you, Susie, and thank you for the question earlier. I appreciate you giving us the answer.
I've heard that Congress would like to publish all recipients in PP value. Any thoughts? Well, the answer, I'll answer that one. They already do that. All 7A loans, all 5A loans are published by dollar amount and by borrower. So these will also be published. What's the cost of this?
Everything SBA does is transparent and available to the public, Bob. If you Google the top paid SBA employees, you can get a list of what every employee makes it is. I mean, all the information about loans, employees, it's all out there. So, yeah.
What's the cost of the 6 months principal and interest payments to the Treasury? Do you know?
You're talking about the 6 months of deferment?
I would say so, yeah. Okay, we're going to hold on. Yeah. We're confused.
Okay. The Treasury would have to answer that question, Bob. It does. There's some cost of money, but
Very good. Lance, Katie, as always, thank you very much. Thank you for your insights. Lance, thank you for taking over for tomorrow. Joseph, I will send you that content. So let's answer all those questions tomorrow, and of course, any other questions that come in. With that, I'll see you all on Thursday. Thank you very much.